Sis tinggal share linknya saja.
Sekarang saya tutup ya.
Dapatkan linknya dulu.
Saya ambil link ini.
Nah, yang bawah, share ini.
Yang ini kan?
Di bawah.
Di bawah di mana?
Nah, sebelah share kan ada share ship. Di bawah lagi. Ya itu sih bisa juga.
Ini saya ambil dari sini.
Enggak, beda sekarang. Sis masuk udah live ya.
Saya buka ini dulu ya. Oke, jadi sekarang
kita udah live di YouTube ini, Sis.
Sudah ya?
Ya, tinggal share linknya itu aja.
Share linknya di
ya di WhatsApp bisa, itulah linknya sekarang. Nanti kalau saya selesai acara tinggal stop go live-nya.
Oke, saya bikin brother co-host dulu ya. Oke, sudah. Hello, everyone. Warm welcome. Hope all of you are staying healthy, staying safe, and most importantly, staying happy. Now, in this challenging time, a lot of us or a lot of people are having the feeling of fear or anxiety due to many reasons such as job loss, financial situation, due to relationships. So today we have with us Sister Manda from UK, who is going to share with us on how to face the future without fear. I see we have an international family get together here. Most of you know Sister Manda, but for those of you who do not, I shall introduce her briefly. Sister Manda joined the Brahma Kumaris in 1981, and she was the fortunate one who was handpicked and trained by the elders of the Brahma Kumaris, Dadi Janki. And since 1993, she has been the director of Global Retreat Center, Oxford. To me, she is honest, truthful, and I just love the way she explains the knowledge so clearly that is so easy for everyone to understand. So I shall welcome Sister Manda to share her wisdom today with us. And before I hand over to her, as usual, we will be answering questions. So do drop your questions and I will read them out to Sister Manda before we end this session. Thank you. Om Shanti, Sister Manda, welcome.
Om Shanti Jabin, thank you so much. And thank you for inviting me to Jakarta today.
Yes.
We seem to be traveling all over the world. I was, where was I the other day? I was in Africa. That's right. I was in Ghana and then I was in Kenya. And so it feels like the world is a very small place. So while physically we may not be with each other, but vibrationally and energetically, very much the feeling that we are connected and we're sharing, we're supporting, we're encouraging and helping each other along. So I hope that all of you have the same feeling too. So today is a very interesting topic. It's a appropriate topic of the time, of course, preparing for the future as if that future is really not going to be so good, or preparing for the future without fear. So it's interesting that our minds project into the future so quickly. Our tendency seems to be we kind of, you know, regret or cause sorrow to ourselves by thinking about the past. and we seem to be engaged in worrying about the future. And so what's happening at the present time? This is the big question to ask ourselves. And time is time kind of spiral, or is time linear, or is time cyclic? Because we also know that that which is the present was the future, and that which is the past was the present. It was also a future, and that which is the future is also going to be the present and will become the past. And so in a sense, it's all interconnected. There is no separation between the past, the present, and the future. And so thinking about it along those lines, it's very interesting, I think, to think about what it is that we need to do and we can do. So anyway, let's just come together, be present here in this space, and commit ourselves to being here. And spend a few minutes in silence together, focusing our minds. On the one hand, there are the advantages of these facilities to connect and to be sustained spiritually. But also, I suspect some of you are sitting in your kitchen, some in the lounge. I was seeing the other day when I was talking to, I think it was Ghana, and somebody was out jogging and he was listening as he was jogging. And at one point, for some reason, he put his camera on, and I could see this, image going like this, and I knew what he was doing. So whether we're out for a walk or whatever, if you are out for a walk, if you are jogging, if you're cooking, whatever it is that you're doing, let's just sit down for a few minutes, become stable and still and quiet, clean the slate of the mind so that we can concentrate, we can assimilate. And as we listen, we can also observe ourselves too. So when I'm speaking, be assured that I am not just speaking to you, I'm also speaking to my own self. It's often an exercise in observing my own self, when I'm sharing not just what I think to be true, but aspects that I am also attempting to practice in my own life. I'm not necessarily entirely that which I'm speaking about, but it is something that I am aspiring to live as well. So just become quiet, take a deep breath, and notice the effect of your breath on your entire being. Whatever's happened until now is the past. It's finished. But you're here in this present moment. And what am I doing with this present moment? Am I subtly thinking about what I'm going to do when I finish this? Or am I anxious to move on to the next thing? Or am I really present in this moment, in this time, in this atmosphere, in this company? And as I become present, as if a stillness, an assurance washes over me, and everything is absolutely just the way it's meant to be. right now. And I am rested in this awareness. Thank you. Om Shanti. Some of you may not be familiar with this expression, Om Shanti. I am the essence of peace. And really, everything in today's world is transient. Not just in today's world, everything. We know the principle of life, that everything is constantly changing. No matter how we want something to be the way it is, it doesn't happen. Because the law of nature is change. The law of spirituality is that everything is constantly changing. And in that change, we ourselves have to learn to respond to that change or recognize our own ability to respond to that change. And so change is inevitable. You cannot prevent that. And when we understand this principle of change, and also together with change, I would say, in fact, the law of entropy, that which is new one day becomes old. You know, a piece of furniture was new and it had its sparkle, and as time goes on, it becomes old and it loses its sparkle. Whether it's nature and seasons, you sow a seed and the seed germinates and a beautiful tree is created, it bears fruits, and there comes a time when that tree also has to go, but another seed is always ready for the next tree to be planted. And so law of nature is this process of transformation. Everything is changing. There's only one place things don't seem to be changing. And where is that? In here. And the more we resist the change, the harder it becomes inside ourselves to cope with what's in front of us. Not only that, we know that everything is changing in many different ways or at many different levels. However, what is important, I think, to be clear about is that when anything is changing, what is it that I have to do? How is it that I have to be with that in order for me to be able to know that whatever the change is, it will always be there for my advantage, for my benefit, and to serve me. Now, this is a new concept. Can change be there to serve me? Even if on the surface it doesn't seem like a good thing, or it has negative connotations, or it's unpleasant. But I'm absolutely certain nowadays more than ever before that there is an advantage in that. There is benefit in that. That something deeper, more significant, and more meaningful is going to emerge out of that. And so what are the aspects that, and we're always worried about various different aspects of our life. And we also know that you can't trust that to be always the same. I suppose that one of the first things excuse me, is our body. We're often worried about our health, about the future of our physical well-being, and I would say nowadays of our mental well-being too. So one thing is, but we also know that as time goes on, body becomes older. And so it loses not only its sparkle, but it loses the physical strength and energy and its ability to serve us. It loses that too. It's normal. And yet our own resistance to acknowledge, I live with a few slightly older people than myself, and it's an interesting thing for me to observe and whilst they are also on a spiritual journey, and I understand that, you know, if you give up something thinking that, okay, it's become weak and frail, then you lose it completely. One of the persons who lives here, she's, you know, in her late 70s, and she has a little problem with her heart, so it's a difficulty for her to walk. So if we're out together, I'll say, Helly, wait here. You just wait here, or slow down, and then we'll come back again. And she'll say, or you wait here and I'll go get the car, and then we get in it together. And she'll say, no, 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 no. That which you leave, it leaves you. In other words, if you say, I can't walk and I'm not going to do it anymore, then even when you need to walk and you want to walk, you won't be able to. It will have left you. Right? It's an interesting principle to think about. And she's amazing, 79 years old, but she will do and walk and do her own thing and look after herself pretty well. But then there's another aspect to that, is that, you know, she can not hear very well a little bit. And because she's becoming frail to some extent, she will resist this frailty. And so she becomes quite upset, or she'll misinterpret something that you say, and she'll get angry about it. And it's okay, I understand. But also there is this resistance to recognizing that, okay, it's okay. I'm a little hard of hearing now, and I just need to try a little bit hard, or be patient. And I understand the resistance too. But my point being that the body does become older. But it's the question of keeping my own butt. Yet at the same time, she does all these mental exercises. She goes on these courses on the computer so that she doesn't lose her memory, or she doesn't become not able to be strong mentally. So she does all of these exercises. And so, you know, looking after our own physical well-being, it's not going to happen when your body's already gone, already lost its power. So I have to do it now. I have to prepare for my future well-being now. So if I'm preparing for it, if I'm working on it, then I'm not going to worry about the future. Whatever happens, I will have prepared, and I know that I've done the best that I could have done. One of the things that we're afraid of, I think, is regrets about what we could have done and we didn't do. And so our physical well-being, looking after our own physical well-being, is if I eat well, I rest well, I take care of myself well, then I know that I've done what I could, and my future is going to be okay. Whatever extent it's possible, I've done my best. And so for your physical well-being, what is also necessary on a spiritual level, actually, is to perform actions that are elevated. If I want to be sure that in future my body is going to serve me, it's going to look after me, is when I have used my body right now to serve others. You know, I'm not going to address the past, because I think the past, we understand actually that past is finished and I have to move on from it. And okay, I say that kind of as if, you know, move on from it. And I know that it's not that simple and that's not that easy. But for moving on from the past, I have to start observing myself. I have to start seeing the threads of the situations that I have found myself in that have caused me difficulties or pain or suffering. And the interesting thing about the past, I think, is that the more we understand the lessons that we've got to learn, the more we're able to move away from our past. There's always something that we've got to learn from situations that have not worked out for us. So in terms of the past, I'm not going to go there in this session. We could just look at the things of the past and how it is that we can be free from the influence of our past. That also is there. But I want to focus on our present, because we're talking about the future, facing off the future. And the thing is that we end up thinking about the past, and we end up mulling the past and reciting with words, reciting with our thoughts, reciting in our minds all the things that have gone wrong and that have caused us pain and sorrow. So what I have to do actually is, in the present moment, what should I be speaking about? What should I be thinking about? What should I be seeing? What are the conversations that I must engage in order for me to, in a sense, override the past? This is really the intention. Override the past by putting so much positive energy in my present moment that I have absolute guarantee that my future is good. You know, people are so interested in their astrology and palmists and people like that are earning so much money these days because people want to know their future. Why is there so much curiosity about the future? It's actually not just curiosity, it's a worry about the future. In a sense, subtly, we are already aware of our past that has not been so pleasant, but our own contribution to that past as well. And so it's really thinking about what is it that I can do at the present moment in various different ways. My relationships, first in my own body, my relationships, the quality of my mind, the quality of my wealth. How am I using my wealth? What am I doing with my wealth? So that the wealth gives me power rather than it gives me it takes my power away. And so in terms of my own physical body, I have to engage in performing actions, physical actions that give power to my body. Instead of worrying about the body and thinking how many hours I've worked and how much I've done, and as a result become so kind of my quality of my thinking begins to affect the strength of my body. The more I engage in performing elevated actions that allow me to come closer to my own self, to my own spiritual self, actions that help others come close to God, to the divine, to the spiritual being, to the spiritual energy, the supreme spirit. These are the actions, whether it's my eyes that I use to have an elevated vision for someone, to have positive vision. Let me be able to see their speciality, their beauty, their uniqueness, that truth, rather than negativity. And then when I see something negative, what do? I think about it. It plays on my mind over and over again, jumping to conclusions about people and their negativity, and then responding or behaving with them in an aggressive manner, or making assumptions about people and their behavior in such a way that it's then, my mind is constantly working, and then what's coming out of my mind is exactly what's in my head. And so I'm using all of my senses, my eyes, my ears. When I use my ears to, listen to gossip, when other people are ready to talk about other people, put them down. My common friendship with someone is my common enemy, really. Actually, my common friendship with someone is our common enemy with someone else. And I mean enemy by when I'm willing to pick faults at other people and so on. So I don't want to concentrate on that, but just use of my physical senses. These are the ears, these are the eyes, this is the mouth, these are the hands that I have used until now out of my own ego for criticism, for negativity, for weakness, all of these different aspects. And now I have to use these very senses to perform elevated actions, actions that serve others. When I do that, then my strength, then my body becomes stronger. You know how in India, particularly, we have this system. I see quite a few Indians in this group and also others. You know, someone will be very rich and well off, and they'll have so many servants in their own homes, they won't even fetch a glass of water for themselves in their own home. Means there's they have so much power in their own homes, but people will go to the temple to do the mundane of tasks, whether it's sweeping the temple, or whether it's the cleaning the temple, or whether it's supporting the priest that's doing something in the temple. They seva, because they know that to go into a special place, spiritual place, and support people in that way, or support a place, actually is supporting themselves. So, you know, if I want to not fear my physical well-being for the future, let me perform elevated actions right now, because these are the actions that will bring my future close to me. Then, of course, there's the whole aspect of relationships. You know, we know that relationships change. Nobody lives forever. If nothing else, nobody lives forever. And so there's that reason why somebody might not be part of my life at some point in the future. And it's inevitable. And yet it's also the thing that we resist a lot. And the more I resist something like that, the more sorrow and pain I cause to myself. It hasn't even happened yet often, but I'm worrying about it today. And, you know, we have a saying in India that a worry is like a sickness, and it's a sickness that eats away at you, and you don't even realize that it's eating away at you. And so in terms of relationships also, though, but more importantly, we also know that when our relationships are new, when we are starting off new relationships, then they have their charm, they have their excitement, they have their energy, they have their vibrancy. But as time goes on, things change. And that's not necessarily a bad thing, in the sense that we're learning to get to know each other, we're learning to understand each other, and in that process, there is maturity that comes, there's emotional maturity that comes within my own self, and I really learn the strength of what it means to have something, make something work. But a quality, my sense is, that is very important in aspects of relationships, is honesty. And honesty, I would say, and humility. These are the two qualities, or integrity, honesty, I'm kind of putting in the same category. And also humility. How much am I, in any relationship, how much am I recognizing the role of honesty and integrity? Because when I am honest with someone today, in all ways, in the quality of my communication, in the quality of my interaction, in the quality of how it is that we live together, then even if in the moment it has its tricky moments and situations come, then ultimately that person will realize what it actually means. Because if something happens in a relationship and they may not have honesty or whatever, but a time will come when they will recognize their own lack of honesty, if you like, until I get, while I have to wait for them to recognize that honesty, I learn patience. I learn myself to hold. I learn myself to love and accept whatever it is that's going on. But in relationships like any kind of relationships, you know, whether it's an intimate relationship, whether it's a work relationship, whether it's a family relationship, it's cultivating honesty, cultivating humility, and cultivating respect. And as I do that, I also begin to have strength, and I also begin to have respect for my own self. What is important in relationships too is that to the extent to which I have a relationship with my own self, the more I spend time in my own company, the more I begin to realize that at the end of the day, I have to have a relationship with my own self, through silence, through a relationship with God. Then I also learned to have a relationship with other people, because, you know, there's only everything, as I said, is changing in our world. Even relationships are changing. There's only one thing that never changes and never ever changes, and that is the divine, the supreme God, whatever language it is that you choose to use. But that one being, an unconditional, spiritual, supreme spirit, spiritual energy that is always the same, always unconditional, always, always giving, never expecting anything in return. And that relationship, that unchanging relationship, actually informs me of the change inside of me, informs me of the change that's happening around me and outside of me. That unchanging force, and my connection with it is my anchor. That unchanging force is my backbone and my support. And when that is happening, then my relationships are not relationships in which I'm always expecting something, I'm wanting something, I'm needing to be fed by relationships with other people, because my own fulfillment comes from that relationship with God, with the divine, with the supreme being. And so then when that is my anchor, then what I share, because we all need relationships at the same time. I'm not saying that we don't need relationships with others, but that anchor actually frees me of fear in terms of my relationships with other people. Whether I lose them, they'll go away, they'll change, whatever it is that my fear might be, or I'm not good enough in relationship with other people. There's a whole spectrum that we need to learn about in this regard as well. And so relationships, the more I have integrity, the more I begin to understand the power of relationships with other people, then the more I am willing to be able to give, willing to be able to support others in whatever capacity, whether it's mother, father, husband, friend, brother, sister, cousin, whatever it might be. They're all relationships that we need, and they're all relationships that play a different role in our lives. But we also know that they come and go, their quality changes, but what doesn't change inside of me is my own value for those relationships within me too. And then I know that in my future, relationships are there to be for company, to be held, to be nurtured. And I also know at the same time that when I have engaged in relationships with other people, even people in the streets, it doesn't have to be the people that we're related to. I think that, you know, sometimes I see often for smallest things, fights break out in the streets. So whether it's on a queue or on an aeroplane or whatever, arguments break out for the smallest things. But do I have the patience to deal with all of those different elements that come my way? And those aspects means actually that when those things are in place, whenever I need someone to be with me, to be by my side, they will always be there. They may not be the people I think that should be there, but when I need support. Someone will always be there when I have been able to give that kind of help and support to other people. And so I don't need to worry. I don't need to worry whether how will I live, who will be there to cook for me when I'm old. If I worry in that way, then I lose my present and I don't have the strength to do the right thing as well. I get into the needy state, and then people are pushing me away rather than willing to be with me. It's always a thing, I think, that in terms of our relationships with other people, what is it that I'm providing for people? Am I someone that is dumping my own stuff on other people? Criticism, negativity, cynicism, complaining, and sarcasm, and all of these kinds of things, all of these negative forms of communication have made home inside of me, because life itself, I perceived life in that way. And so if it sits inside of me, when someone comes in front of me, what happens? When someone comes in front of me, that's the only thing that will come out of my mouth. It's like I'm harboring so much negativity inside me that my vibrations become heavy, my words become negative, I'm complaining, and whoever comes in front of me, I have the same old things to say all the time. But yet someone who's moving on, constantly recognizing the flow of life and not holding on, they're bright, they're light, they're happy, they're sharing, they're giving. Just coming in the company of someone like that, they don't have to say anything, but the way they live their life makes you feel easy and comfortable, and their company lifts a burden for you as well when you're with them. And so it's really interesting to think about how it is that my relationships with other people are. What is it that people are perceiving from me? So then I have nothing to worry about the future, nothing to worry about whether people will be there or not. There will always be people, because they will want to be with me. They will want to serve me. So that's the aspect of relationship. So never worry about your relationship if you're dealing with your relationships in the right way right now. And then money. It's such a, what's the word I'm looking for? The money is, it can slip out of our hands so quickly, or we can lose it. The world is full of so much pain and sorrow and suffering and deception and cheat and all of this. So we worry whether we will have money. And so how can you ensure that you have enough? Again, in India we have a saying, just because, or that, if you have a little and you think you have a lot, there's no one as rich as you. And if you have a lot and you think you have nothing or you have little, then there's no one as poor as you. Now just think about that psychology for a moment. If you have a lot, but you don't think you have enough, you're miserly. You're miserly with yourself, you're miserly with others, you've never had any to give for charity, but you're always worried about how to hold on to what you have. You're occupied in just making it stay. That's when you might as well be sick, because you have it, but you're not able to enjoy it. You're not able to share it with other people. And so again, we come back to this thing: what am I doing with what I have at the present moment in time? Money is also an energy. It's just another form of energy. It's nothing physical. If you have it and you use it, then you know that it will grow. If you use it to serve others, if you use it to nourish others spiritually, if you use it to support other people, it's not possible that you will run out. So many examples I've heard. Jabin mentioned Dadi Janki, and our elders. Dadi Janki was the head of the Brahma Kumaris and recently passed away. And yes, it's true. I had amazing fortune to spend time with her. And she would always say, you know, she will get something, she receives it in one hand, she gives away in the other hand. But more and more comes. She would always say, as part of our work, our spiritual work, she would say, you know, the retreat center that I have been at for the last 27 years. Currently, it's being renovated, and so we're not living there. It's an 18th century Palladian villa with 70 bedrooms and 6, 7 staterooms and other meeting rooms and dining rooms and so on. It can accommodate 100 people, you know, massive place. But Daddy Janky, we would always constantly moving, be doing things in terms of service, but keeping the freshness of the energy. But you know, all of those years, she never once asked me, why did you do that? Why did you spend money on that? How much was that? Or, oh, that was too expensive. Or don't buy this, or don't buy that. Or don't. Never once in all those years, I remember that she ever asked me why I spent money on something. Why did I change this piece of furniture? Why did we decide to get this and not that? Or never. And so all of us who were living there, 25, 30 of us, in fact, she would say more important to preserve people's energy, because right now our energies are more important to stay positive, to stay easy, to stay relaxed, and people should have time. People shouldn't be, you know, spending time doing physical work to such an extent that encroaches upon their personal time, that time for spiritual study or their time to meditate. She would say, if you need a piece of equipment, buy the piece of equipment so that people's lives are easier. They can spend time. What's really needed now is our spiritual, is the spiritual energy. And so to be able to generate that. And, you know, we have a building that was constructed nearly 30 years ago, Global Corporation House. It was the first building outside of India that the Brahma Kumaris constructed. We didn't have the money to pay the architects that were needed when the plans were being made. We got the land for a very small amount of money, but when it came to building it, we didn't have the money. And believe it or not, in the end, we decided to go ahead, and we made all the arrangements officially to get a loan or whatever else. But can you believe it? £4 million project, we never needed to take loan. Why? Because just the money that was needed would come when it was needed, in the way that it was needed. And so we as an organization, even we don't have the policy of investing money or hoarding money or keeping money, that he would always say, money comes, use it for service. That's what it's for. Use it to serve other people. And then, you know, the Brahma Kumaris work from very small places. London in 1974, one or two other places. Now there are centers in 120 different countries from around the world. Not because we're a rich organization, but we recognize that money is just an energy, and it needs to move. It needs to flow. It needs to do something. And then we don't have to worry about money. Even today, the house is being constructed, but we don't have the money to do what we have to do right now. But as time goes on, we know that money will come. What's more important is service, not the money. And how much can I employ that philosophy in my own personal life? Do I employ that philosophy, or do I try to hold on to? And what happens when you held on to energy? It's just not possible, you know. It's like water; it will just flow out of your hand. And you know, when I try to hold on to it, my greed comes up, my attachment comes up, my ego comes up, and it's what is it that causes me pain generally in my life? It's not these things. It's not the lack of it or more of it. It's my attachment and my possessiveness and my ego with it. And so it's this thing about, you know, the other day we had in our lesson, it's more important to mold yourself according to the situation. And so someone asked a question to me in our early morning meditation and class, So how much do you mold yourself? And this could apply to anything, situations, circumstances, relationships, whatever. How do you mold yourself? How much do you mold yourself, and how much you become aware that you don't become you're not becoming a subordinate of someone else. And it was interesting because I thought, well, if I feel I'm becoming subordinate, you don't become subordinate just to someone who's weaker than you. You can, or someone who's not weaker than you, not just someone who is abusive or negative. You can also become a subordinate to someone who is very powerful. So is it the other person, or is it my own state of mind that becomes subordinate? So it's me having to address how it is that I'm perceiving someone or something that's happening outside of me, instead of looking at that which is happening and thinking that that is what needs to change. Actually, my relationship with it needs to change rather than the situation itself. So it's an interesting thing. So in money, if I use it to benefit others, I know absolutely that I will never go without. I will never not have enough to eat. I will never not have a roof over my head. Now, I can say, well, I need a 5-course meal every meal or every day, or I can just say, I can have just bread and soup, or I can have a dry chapati and dal, whatever it is but I will have enough. So what is my attachment to? Is my attachment to money, or is my attachment to the way in which I want to have things? If I worry about that, I'm not enjoying what I have now. I'm not sharing with what I have with others, and my future will also become stifled. So this aspect of stifling things is very interesting. You can stifle relationships, you can stifle money, you can stifle the energy of money, you can stifle even your own self. And then, of course, there are situations and circumstances. My latest realization, if you like, and this, I think, if this doesn't free us from fear, I don't know what will free us from fear. I'm seeing that everything that happens, everything in our world is benevolent. The seed of everything that is happening is the seed of benevolence, because God is the seed of the human world tree. If God is the seed of the human world tree, then everything that's happening, and God doesn't sit there blaming anything, accusing anything, condemning anything. What is God's role in our lives today, in our world today? To just provide the space, provide the energy, provide the truth, provide the purity, provide the love. And as such, when you think about it, actually, everything is benevolent. Nature and elements are benevolent. Situations, and even the negative situations, are benevolent situations. And the reason why they're benevolent is because, if nothing else, they're making me strong. If nothing else, they're teaching me a lesson. They're teaching me something. But am I prepared to see those lessons? Am I prepared to grow from these situations and circumstances? Or am I so locked inside of them that those situations just become a trap for me? But I think, look at Earth. You think about the 5 physical elements. 5 physical elements are, earth, water, fire, air, and ether. All of these elements are there to serve us. Okay, so if it rains too much, if there's earthquake, all of these things cause damage. But why has it got to that point? It's got to that point because of the imbalance that we as human beings have created. However, it's because that it's got to that point that it's got to change again and go back to its original state. Everything has to go back to the beginning. We have to go back to the beginning. And my sense that this is where we're heading now. Look at this lockdown. Look at this coronavirus. Every single country in the world is on the same page. Yes, you can see what's economy is going to be affected and all of this. Right now, our own minds, we are beginning to do things. We're learning to recognize energy. We're learning to do things that we've never done before. We are learning to recognize the power of quieting down. Would Jabin have ever asked me to come and do this if you weren't experiencing lockdown, if we were not realizing that we need to harvest these opportunities that we have to connect with each other from around the world, whoever they are. I don't think Jabin and I have ever met physically before, but somewhere she's heard about me and she's got in touch with me. Many of you have never heard about me, but here we are. We are sharing purely because of COVID-19, I think, nothing else. And so really, but if you change your vision, if you change your attitude to that of benevolence towards what's happening, you will find that your own benevolence will emerge too, because ultimately the spirit, the human spirit, is benevolent. The human spirit is that which is constantly serving, because we are this constant thinking, constant living energy. And as such, this energy we're constantly emanating, we're constantly sharing, we're constantly giving. And because we're doing that, we are benevolent. However, what we have to become conscious of is what is it that we're benevolent of or with? Or in what way are we sharing? Are we sharing the negativity that's filled inside of us? Or are we now beginning to realize this incredible potential that's hidden within us and we are sharing that? What is it that we're being benevolent with? And I think that now we begin to realize that our potential for benevolence is huge, enormous, unlimited, vast. And so really, it's using the opportunities, using what we have in the way that so that we are able to harvest all opportunities that come our way. And there's nothing but benefit, nothing but benevolence within all of that. So I'll stop here and I don't know whether Jabin wants to invite questions now or we want to have a little meditation first.
Thank you, sister. I think what would be really nice right now is to have a few minutes of meditation and let's ponder upon the wisdom that you've shared with us today, and then we will address the questions. Thank you.
All right. So just sit comfortably and relaxed, alert. Let's take a few deeper breaths, keeping in mind some of the things that we've shared. If you're used to closing your eyes, that's fine. If you want to keep your eyes open, and just rest your eyes on the screen and the center of the forehead, that's also fine. I will go from one to the other. Just feel your breath and feel the consistency of your breath. Feel the energy of your breath. Feel your breath giving life to the body. Feel your breath as this breath, pran. And just see the moment as this vast, unlimited moment of perfection. Don't think about the past. Don't think about others. Don't think about any situation or circumstances. but just this moment. How right, how precise, how accurate. And as you do that, it's as if you yourself feel the sense of solid presence of yourself, the solidness of this moment. It just is, and it's just fine. And it is here that I recognize what an amazing contribution I can make to the world. Holding the space, holding this energy. And I become aware of peace, the energy of peace, or silence, of depth. And it is here that I invite the presence of the divine, the one unchanging force. I feel God's presence of love, presence of peace, always available to me, anytime, any place. And it is this that becomes the precious power, my place of safety. Notice your breath again. Notice your breath. Hold you and the energy of yourself. Become completely still and stable. Thank you. Om Shanti. Unmute yourself.
Sorry. Yes. Thank you, sister. That was indeed very, very nice. It was beautiful. We have a few questions. Actually, it is concerning what you said earlier, relationships. The question is, should we cut or move away from toxic people who harm us physically, or stay with them and create good thoughts for them, hoping they will change?
Well, this is a million-dollar question always. I think that when people are toxic, you do need to create a distance and space, especially when you've got into a relationship that's such a close one, and where there's physical proximity is also very difficult. My own sense is that it's good to create distance for a while, not to walk away from it, but for a while. And in creating that distance, I think you can develop the ability to to have good thoughts, positive thoughts or loving thoughts, and then you can mend the relationship. But sometimes you're so wrapped up in it. When you're in something, you can't see what's really going on, or it's you or them or whatever. And so my own feeling is that a little bit of separation for a while is a good thing.
Okay. The next question is, I feel anxious when I think about my work, financial situation. How do I change the feeling at that time?
You can't change it in the moment. You have to work on it. You have to employ some of the policies, if you like, some of these methods that I've spoken of. You have to start putting little things in place so that when suddenly an onslaught of thought comes, then you're able to take charge of it. But if you don't put some of these principles in place, worrying about money, for instance, start to think positively, start to employ the method of thinking positively, start to use your money in a good way at the same time, as well as thinking about positively, so that you will start to see that your own relationship with money changes. It's often about our relationship with it and our relationship of fear of losing it. And so I think you have to start to put things in place. That doesn't mean that it's going to go away just like that. It'll take time, but you have to start to put things in place. Say, okay, this is how much I have, and this is how much I'm going to use to support others, or I'm going to do spiritual service with this, or I'm going to engage myself in positive thinking about it. You have to start putting energy into it. And when you do that, then you begin to see the difference.
The next question is, there is an aspect or element of fear also because we take sorrow. Is it true? If yes, could you explain?
Yes, the element of fear is because we take sorrow and we have the habit of taking sorrow. And we have lots of references of the things of the past. It is true. It's because we're afraid of sorrow, but we're also addicted to sorrow. Observe that one. We're also addicted to sorrow. Because the habit of feeling sorry for ourselves, the habit of justifying the pain and the sorrow and the suffering. And so actually we have to start to learn to take joy as our quality, and things that have given us sorrow from the past, to change our relationship with that. So whatever it is, put it aside, see its context. Nobody gives me sorrow. And as you say, the word is quite rightly, you take sorrow. Nobody gives me sorrow, in a sense that even if someone's doing something negative, I choose to see it in that way and I feel affected by it. But if somebody's doing something wrong, when we were little, actually, we used to be told by our parents and our elders that if somebody gives you something and you don't take it, what happens to it? It stays with them. And it's the same thing. If somebody gives you sorrow, but you don't take it on board. But the thing is, all of these different aspects requires for us to do deeper inner spiritual work. And in doing so, building our own self-respect, building our self-worth, building or recognizing the value of our own selves, our spiritual value. And on that basis, which is just a completely internal thing, it's got nothing to do with anything outside. And that's inner work that we have to do. And on the basis, I'm a spiritual being and my original state is positive and good. It's only when I begin to identify myself with this, and I associate with the world outside, then young, old, black, white, ugly, beautiful, tall, thin, all of these things become part of our thinking. And when that happens, then we identify ourselves with that. And when we identify ourselves with that, then we forget our own internal state, which was nothing to do with that. That came on afterwards. And so really, meditation, the understanding of the spiritual self, allows us to develop a greater, deeper spiritual self-worth.
Thank you, sister. We have about 2 or 3 questions more, if that is okay with you.
Yeah, okay. 5 minutes more is okay.
Yeah. How do you manage the fear of not being of good use to others? There is a sense of wanting to help, but not sure of what we should do or how we should do it.
Well, you know, in all religious traditions, there is the seva bhav. In Hindi we say seva bhav, the spirit of serving. There are so many different ways. You know, if you have a religious affiliation of some sort, they talk about service. There is in today's world, you know, because of Corona and because of lockdown, people have become so supportive of each other. You know, in our village here, there is a place where people can go to say that they want, not anymore because now it's much more open, but in the beginning they could go to someone and say, I need shopping done, and can you get this and this for me? And people did that for each other. I think you can reach out to so many places. Funnily enough, when I first started my own spiritual journey, it started from that place. I felt that the world was such a place that needed help, and I wanted to help. So I actually wrote off to the charities in England here. And, you know, I don't remember the different charities now, but I want to go, but I do remember saying I want to go to the parts of the world and places where people need help. But they all wrote back to me, okay, we'll get back to you. And they say, in the meantime, you fill in this donation form. So I was doing that. But it's only when I had a deeply spiritual experience that I realized actually the most powerful service is spiritual service. And, you know, Jesus said you can feed someone once or twice or 3 times or 10 times. But ultimately, if you teach that person to earn a living for themselves, then you've taught them to eat for the rest of their lives. And so spiritual service I see like that, whether it's using my mind, my body, my wealth, my time, my energy, all of that in a spiritual way means that I'm actually supporting people at the core of their being, and I'm supporting people to take charge and responsibility of their lives. And so that's how I embarked on a spiritual journey. I had an amazing experience, and I thought that's what people need, and that's what I have to share with people. So now that's what I'm engaged in.
Okay, the next question is, how can I help my teenager that is very negative?
You can only help your teenager that is negative by being positive yourself. And not by telling him to be positive. That won't happen. That won't work. You have to be positive. Demonstrate being positive to him. Demonstrate by being, not by saying, oh, look how I'm being positive and you're not. Not like that. Be positive. Acknowledge his achievements. Instead of pointing out his negativity, honor him, respect him, love him, and he will see the positivity very quickly.
Okay, one last question. How do I keep harmony in relationships?
Well, it's, you know, relationship nowadays, when we are all in need, we always want. Always want. And in subtle ways, we are always wanting the other person to be the way we want them to be. So if I want to maintain harmony, then harmony is giving and taking. Daddy Janki used to say, harmony. Don't try and prove yourself, accept defeat. Always be the one to say, okay, this is how you have it. This is how it is. And so it's really through humility, to bowing down, but not out of your own emptiness and neediness, but by connecting with God, taking power from God, and responding in a relationship from a place of power, not from a place of neediness.
Sorry, sister, we have one more question, if you don't mind.
Last one, then I have to go.
Okay. I understand my reason for being fearful intellectually, but I am not being able to bring it practically into my life. Can you please help?
Well, that's what we've been talking about all for the last hour. Try to put things in place. that are beyond logic. Just respond to the need, respond to supporting people, helping people, and doing all of these things that we've been talking about. It's not just a heady exercise. It's physically do things with your hands and, you know, with your words and with your vibration. Okay.
Yeah. Thank you very much, sister. It's
Okay.
been a wonderful evening to have you. And we do hope maybe once everything is over, we can have you in Jakarta sharing with us.
I'm sure it will happen. Never been to Jakarta before.
Yeah, I would love to have you here with us.
I'm sure
Thank
it will
you.
happen.
Thank you so much.
Okay. Thank you very much.
Yeah, thank you everyone for joining us today. Our
Okay.
next session will be on coming Saturday at 4 p.m. with Dr. Girish Patel. And he will be talking about dimensions of healthy living. So do hope to see all of you, and drop me a message if you would like to get updated on our future talks. Thank you. Until then, stay safe and stay healthy. Om Shanti. Thank you
Om
once again, Sister Manda. Om
Thank you.
Shanti.
Bye. Bye.
Bye.